Hi everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and I have a shaker card I've created using some Studio Katia products. Two of the main items that I'm featuring from Studio Katia is the dotted shaker tag die, and it has a nice frame plus a center cutout. Also, I'm using the Hello Alice stamp set, and it features a really cute girl with her umbrella, kitten, and some rain. I'll be stamping on some white Neenah cardstock, and I've put this into my Tim Holtz stamp platform. And I'm just going to stamp the girl, the kitten, and also the puddle. I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, which gives me a really nice crisp image. I can see that I need to press a little bit harder in the center, so I'm going to give that a little push. And now I can cut these out and do my coloring. I've chosen to use my Prisma color pencils to color in, and I've had to speed this up because it does take a while to do your coloring. So at first I'm outlining her hair with one of the darker colors of orange. I want to make this a little bit blonde but yet with orange highlights. And so I've added in some yellow, and when I do the outlining I use heavy pressure, and then when I color towards the center of her head I'm using a little bit lighter pressure. I do like to go back over and use an eraser, and that kind of lightens the tone and smooths out the color. Now I'm going back in with a little bit of brown to darken up those edges. I'll go between my red and my brown just to get the right tone of color for her hair. I'm using a light beige color for her skin tone, and again I will use a hard pressure around the outside of her face and then work towards the center and do really light pressure so that it looks rounded. Once I have her skin tone colored, I'm using a light peachy tone just to create a couple spots on her cheeks. I want to keep my colors a little bit pastel so that they go with my background paper that I've chosen. So right now I'm coloring in her little jeans with a light blue, and again I use the heavy pressure around the outside and then the lighter pressure towards the inside, so it looks like her legs are rounded. I realized that I had forgotten to color in her little hands, so I just took care of that. I'm moving on to a light yellow for her rain boots, and I've chosen a darker yellow to go around the outside since that color was really, really light. So I'm just adding a little golden tone just to the bottom of her boots. Next, for her umbrella, I wanted it a peachy color, which will go really nicely with my paper. And again, I'm going with a heavy hand on the outer parts of the umbrella and then lighter in the center. I'm coloring up the water puddle just with some blue, and I want it to look like it has a little bit of light reflection on the top, so I'm leaving that blank. The last thing to color is the little kitten, and I'm using two tones of gray, a lighter one to fill in and a darker one to get a little bit of roundness and shading like under the chin and inside the ears. And after coloring, I'll add some pink to his cheeks. Okay, now we can slow it back down, and I'm ready to get things going for the card. So I have die cut my white frame, and I've also cut out a blue piece of paper that's going to go in the backing. Right now I'm stamping a couple raindrops, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Winter Sky because I felt it went really well with the paper. The next thing you're going to want to do for your shaker card is to cut a piece of acetate, and this needs to fit just inside that frame. And I've also cut it away from that top loop area. So what I want to do is run my tape runner around the edges. This is on the back side of that die cut tag, and I want to make sure that I have a really good seal. So my tape runner will overlap if it needs to. I'm going to place my acetate down. I want to make sure it's lined up. And once I have that lined up, I can press that down. This gives me the front window of my shaker card. This is a really easy way to create your shaker card from the front to the back. The next thing I want to do is to create a double layer of my foam tape. So I am cutting that in half so that I get strips. And just by cutting it in half, it's the perfect width to go around this frame. So I have already put down one layer. Right now I'm adding the second layer down. And I want to make sure that I have it really well sealed because this is what's going to hold in all the sequins. The stacked up foam tape will accommodate the width of the sequins. I don't know if you've ever made one where you've just done a single layer and it just kind of holds the sequins down. So this gives them plenty of room to move around for your shaker card. This is an important step, especially when using sequins. Before you remove the backing, use a powder brush or some sort of anti-static and just add powder to the sides of that adhesive. That way they won't stick to the sides. So once you have that really well powdered up, you can go ahead and remove the backing and start adding your sequins. I'll be using a combination of the Studio Acacia Light Metallic Blue and Space Silver, which will give me a really nice variation of color. And finally, I'm adding in some Simon Says Stamp Moonshine, which has a nice assortment of sizes. Once I have all my sequins in place, I'm going to get ready to put my backing paper on. So I'm going to line that up and make sure I have the edges all straight, and then I can just press this around right where that foam tape was. Now this will seal in all of my sequins, and I can put it anywhere on my card and I don't have to worry about anything falling out. I'm ready to do my assembly, so I'm going to first put some adhesive on the back of my shaker element, and I'm just running my adhesive over where the foam is underneath. This gives me a nice platform to add that adhesive. I did cut off the top portion of my backing paper where that tab is to get that out of the way. So I want to line this up and make sure that it is square with the rest of the card. I did stamp on my panel just a note just below where the shaker element is, and I've put some foam pieces on the back of my puddle, my kitten, and my little girl. Next, I'll tuck my puddle right underneath that tag shaker element. Then I can add my little girl to where she's sitting on the tag, but yet her feet are standing right over that puddle. And finally, I can add the little kitten right next to her, sitting right on the tag. To finish my card off, I did add a little hemp bow at the very top, and I left the strings really nice and flowy. And I love how the coloring turned out to match with that background color and the happy little kitten sitting next to his Alice. I hope you've enjoyed how I make my shaker cards, and as always, thanks so much for watching.